Imagine walking into your pantry one day during a real crisis. Stores are closed, deliveries stopped, and all you've got left is a shelf full of food that's quietly expired when you needed it most. That's the moment a lot of people realize they were stocking the wrong stuff. Sure, the flashy emergency meal kits might last a couple years, but they're not built for the long haul. And if things go south for more than just a few days, your backup plan better not come with an expiration date stamped just 2 summers from now. Here's the truth. Most folks focus on the short game, buying canned goods, frozen meats, boxed snacks. But they ignore the foods that could literally outlast them. I'm talking about ingredients that, when stored properly, never expire. Not in 5 years, not in 10. We're talking shelf stable for decades, even generations. And no, this isn't about hoarding or panic. It's about building real resilience. Quiet confidence that your food stash won't betray you when it matters most. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 30 foods that are basically immune to time. Some of them you already know. Others will surprise you. But every single one can help sustain you and your family indefinitely if you store them right. Because it's not just about having food. It's about having the right food. So, if you've been tossing a few extra cans in your grocery cart thinking you're covered, it might be time for a reality check. These foods aren't just useful for emergencies. They're budget-friendly, barter-ready, and many of them even pack a serious nutritional punch. Stick with me, because by the end of this list, you'll know exactly what to stock, how to store it, and why these overlooked essentials might just be the smartest investment you ever make. Let's get one thing straight. If your emergency stash doesn't include serious bulk grains, you're setting yourself up for failure. Grains and dry staples are the absolute foundation of long-term food security. They're calorie-dense, easy to prepare, ridiculously cheap in bulk, and if stored correctly, they last for decades. We're talking 25 to 30 years without breaking a sweat. And no, that's not just marketing hype. That's been tested in real-world emergencies and backed by decades of food science. Let's kick things off with the obvious champion, white rice. Not jasmine, not basmati, and definitely not brown rice. Stick with plain, long-grain white rice. Brown rice has natural oils that spoil fast. But white rice, when stored in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and sealed in food-grade buckets, becomes a time capsule of nutrition. You could bury it in the basement, dig it up 30 years later, and still cook it like you just bought it yesterday. That's not an exaggeration. I know folks who've opened rice from the 90s, and it tasted just fine. You want a basic rule of thumb? Store at least 100 pounds of rice per person. That might sound like a lot, but when the store shelves are empty and food inflation kicks in, it'll feel like you hit the jackpot. Next on deck, rolled oats. Not those quick cook packets filled with sugar. I mean the good stuff. Whole rolled oats. They're loaded with fiber, iron, and complex carbohydrates that give you sustained energy throughout the day. You can make oatmeal, granola, oat flour, protein balls, you name it. And again, when sealed in mylar and stored in buckets, oats give you up to 25 years of reliable shelf life. Here's a tip. Toss in a few bay leaves or use food-grade diatomaceous earth to keep bugs away if you're sealing big quantities. Now let's talk about dry pasta, a food most people overlook because it feels too normal. But that's exactly why it's genius. Pasta is cheap, easy to cook, and comforting. It fills your belly and lifts your mood, especially during a long-term emergency where stress and anxiety are part of daily life. Dry pasta, protected from humidity, can last over 30 years. And here's something people forget. It cooks quickly. That means less fuel used, less water wasted, and more meals made with less effort. You can mix pasta with canned tomatoes, dried herbs, powdered cheese, or even just a little salt and oil. One box becomes a meal for the whole family. Beyond the big three, you've got dried lentils, split peas, and beans, which also count as dry staples. Not only are they cheap and easy to store, but they provide a powerful punch of protein and fiber. When paired with rice or oats, they form a complete amino acid profile, meaning you get all the protein building blocks your body needs to function without ever opening a can of tuna. Lentils, in particular, are gold. They cook faster than most beans, don't need soaking, and offer almost 18 grams of protein per cup. Here's something almost no one talks about: wheat berries. These are whole, unprocessed grains of wheat that can be ground into flour with a hand mill or electric grinder. Unlike store-bought flour, which starts degrading after 6 months, wheat berries stored in airtight containers will last 30 years or more. That means you can bake fresh bread, pancakes, tortillas, whatever you want, with flour you grind on demand. That's the kind of self-reliance that really counts when systems break down. And don't forget about cornmeal. When stored in vacuum-sealed bags or buckets, it can last 10 plus years easily. Mix it with water and a little salt, and you've got polenta, cornbread, or even thick porridge for breakfast. It's simple, filling, and something most pantries totally miss. Now, let's talk storage. If you're just tossing bags of grains into your closet, you're doing it wrong. Those plastic bags from the store are not airtight. Bugs, moisture, oxygen, they all get in. You want 3 things: Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and 5-gallon buckets. Fill the bags with food, toss in an absorber, seal it tight with a hot iron, and drop it into a bucket with a gamma lid or tight seal top. Label each one with the food, the amount, and the date. Then stack them up in a cool, dry space away from direct sunlight. Don't use the garage or attic. Temperature swings are your enemy. As for quantity, here's a baseline: 300 to 400 pounds of dry staples per adult for a 1-year supply. That sounds extreme, but remember, grains are the fuel that keeps your body running. And if you ever need to help a neighbor, trade for something essential, or stretch your food budget during a crisis, nothing beats having literal buckets of calorie-dense staples ready to go. This isn't just about survival. It's about smart, sustainable planning. Your grain stash isn't a doomsday bunker fantasy. It's peace of mind. And when the power's out, the shelves are empty, and your neighbors are boiling snow for dinner, that stash will feel like the best decision you ever made. Most people prepping for emergencies focus so much on canned goods and grains that they forget an entire category that's just as essential, and sometimes even more powerful, in a barter economy. I'm talking about sweeteners and baking staples. Sugar, honey, molasses, baking soda, baking powder. These items are not just for making cookies. They're key players in long-term food storage and survival, and every serious prepper should have them stacked deep. Let's start with the classic: white sugar. Say what you want about it in your daily diet, but sugar doesn't spoil. Properly stored in airtight containers, it lasts forever. Not 5 years, not 10, forever. And it has dozens of uses beyond sweetening your coffee. Sugar helps preserve fruits, supports fermentation, can be used to feed sourdough starters, and even works in basic wound care. Seriously, pack sugar into a cut, and it draws moisture out, helping to kill bacteria. It's a low-tech antiseptic your grandparents probably knew about. The key to storing sugar is keeping it away from moisture. It won't spoil, but it will clump like crazy if it gets humid. Store it in sealed buckets or jars with tight-fitting lids. No need for oxygen absorbers. They can actually harden sugar, but you might want to toss in a few food-safe desiccant packs just to keep things dry. Now let's talk about honey, one of the few foods on Earth that truly never goes bad. Archaeologists have found sealed jars of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs. And guess what? Still edible. That's because honey has natural antibacterial properties, low water content, and a high acidity level. Nothing nasty can survive in it. And aside from being a delicious sweetener, honey pulls double duty as medicine. It soothes sore throats, calms coughs, helps heal wounds, and boosts energy faster than most energy drinks. Without the crash, raw, unfiltered honey is your best bet. It may crystallize over time, but that's normal. Just warm the jar in a bowl of hot water and it'll turn right back to liquid. Avoid pasteurized or heavily processed honey if you can. That stuff loses a lot of its natural benefits. Now let's add molasses to the mix. It's basically the leftover syrup from sugar production. Thick, dark, and packed with nutrients that refined sugar doesn't have. Molasses contains iron, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. It's not just for gingerbread. Use it in homemade bread, marinades, baked beans, or even just drizzled over oats. And while it might darken or separate slightly over the years, it's another item that lasts indefinitely when sealed and stored in a cool, dark place. On to the baking side of things. Baking soda and baking powder. Absolute must-haves for anyone planning to do any scratch cooking during an emergency. And these aren't just for cookies and pancakes. Baking soda is one of the most versatile compounds in your kitchen. Use it to clean surfaces, deodorize your fridge, brush your teeth, treat bug bites, or even help extinguish small grease fires. Stored dry and airtight, it lasts indefinitely. Just test it by adding a bit to vinegar. If it bubbles vigorously, it's still good. Baking powder is a little trickier. It usually contains baking soda plus a weak acid and a starch to absorb moisture. It doesn't last forever, but you can make your own if you've got baking soda and cream of tartar. Another reason to keep both on hand. Commercial baking powder generally stays potent for 12 to 18 months, but if you vacuum seal it or store it in Mylar with a desiccant, you can extend that shelf life dramatically. And let's not skip over salt. It might not be sweet, but it's critical for baking and preserving. Plain table salt, kosher salt, sea salt, doesn't matter. It never goes bad, and it's a powerful trade item. In fact, salt was once so valuable it was used as currency. That's where the word salary comes from. Every prepper should have pounds of the stuff stored, iodized for daily use, non-iodized for preserving meats or fermenting vegetables. You also want to consider powdered milk and powdered eggs for baking. These will show up again later in our list. But just know this. Being able to whip up bread, biscuits, or pancakes when fresh ingredients aren't available is a serious morale booster and a survival win. One last item a lot of folks overlook. Yeast. Yes, it has a shorter shelf life than the others. But if you vacuum seal it and freeze it, yeast can stay viable for years. And once it's gone, learn to maintain a sourdough starter. Just flour, water, and time. And you'll never be without a way to make bread again. In a crisis, sweeteners and baking supplies aren't just about food. They're about comfort, normalcy, barter, and self-reliance. Imagine being the only person on your block who can still bake a loaf of bread or sweetened tea when the shelves are stripped bare. That's not just practical. It's powerful. Start thinking beyond the basics. Stock 25 to 50 pounds of sugar per person. Get at least 2 to 3 gallons of raw honey tucked away in glass jars. Store molasses in sealed jugs. Keep a couple dozen pounds of salt in food-safe buckets. And have a 5-year rotation plan for your baking powder, soda, and yeast. Because in the long run, it's not just about having food. It's about having the right food to create, preserve, trade, and comfort when everything else feels uncertain. These aren't luxury items. They're lifelines in disguise. Let's shift gears and talk about something most people think they've already got covered: canned goods. But if your emergency shelf is just stacked with random cans of soup, you might be missing the point. What you need is a targeted mix of long-lasting proteins, nutrient-dense staples, and shelf-stable comfort foods that don't rely on electricity, refrigeration, or daily prep. Because when it comes to crisis situations, protein isn't optional. It's survival fuel. Let's start with the classic canned meat: chicken, beef, turkey, pork. These are your go-to sources of complete protein, and they store beautifully. A quality can of chicken will give you 20 to 25 grams of protein per serving and can last 5 to 10 years past the printed date if stored right. Look for cans with pull tabs and avoid anything dented or rusted. And remember, variety matters. You don't want to eat the same thing every day for weeks. Stock chicken, tuna, spam, salmon, sardines, even canned roast beef or ham. Speaking of tuna, it's the protein most people default to, but here's the kicker. It has a shorter shelf life than chicken and beef, and some brands are high in mercury. If you've got kids or pregnant women in the house, opt for low mercury brands like Safe Catch or Wild Planet. These are tested batch by batch and still pack plenty of protein without the toxic risk. Then there's Spam. Yeah, it's got a bad rap. But let's be real. It's one of the most calorie-dense and shelf-stable meats you can buy. Lasts 5 to 10 years, doesn't need refrigeration, and can be eaten cold if needed. It's also versatile. Dice it into rice, add it to beans, fry it up with powdered eggs. It's not gourmet, but in a survival situation, it's gold. Canned beans are another essential. Not only do they provide protein, but they come pre-cooked, which means no soaking or fuel required. Black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, you name it. Pop the lid, heat if you can, eat if you can't. Pair them with rice or tortillas, and you've got a complete protein meal with fiber, iron, and heart-friendly nutrients. And let's not forget peanut butter, the unsung hero of any prepper's pantry. A good jar of peanut butter has a shelf life of 2 to 3 years and provides protein, healthy fats, and calories in one scoop. Almond butter and sunflower seed butter are solid alternatives, especially for those with allergies. Keep them in cool, dark storage and rotate them every 18 months. What about canned soups and stews? They're convenient, sure, but here's a better approach. Choose the ones that can stretch. A chunky beef stew or chili can be extended with rice, pasta, or freeze-dried veggies to make 2 or 3 meals. You want to avoid thin broth-only soups unless they're being used as a base. Your goal should be calories, protein, and staying power in every can. One tip you won't hear often. Look for cans with higher fat content. In a grid-down situation, your body needs more than just protein. It needs calories to stay warm, think clearly, and keep your immune system running. A can of chili with meat and beans might offer 400 calories and 20 grams of protein in one serving. That's survival math that works. Now let's talk rotation. Canned goods may last longer than their expiration dates suggest, but you still need to cycle them out. Use the FIFO system. First in, first out. New cans go in the back, older ones come forward. Every few months, do a sweep and eat anything approaching its best by date. Replace it with fresh stock. That way, nothing goes to waste, and your inventory is always ready. And don't just buy what's on sale. Build a diverse inventory, proteins from multiple sources, flavor profiles that won't burn you out, and items that don't require complicated prep. In a crisis, you want food that's ready to go, nutritious, and ideally comforting. You also want to think in meal terms. Don't just buy 40 cans of tuna and think you're done. Can you build a meal with what you have? Do you have a protein, a starch, a seasoning, maybe a fat source? Peanut butter is great, but what are you spreading it on? Spam is filling, but what are you eating it with? Build your canned inventory like you're planning real meals, not just collecting metal containers. A solid canned protein supply should aim for at least 2 servings per person, per day, for at least 30 days. That's 60 servings minimum per person. Mix and match based on your family's tastes, dietary needs, and cooking options. And yes, don't forget your can openers. Keep one in the kitchen and one in your emergency kit. Bonus points for getting ones with built-in bottle openers and manual crank power. Last thing, storage conditions matter more than most people think. Canned food hates heat. Storing cans in a hot garage shortens their life dramatically. Keep them indoors, on shelves, off the ground, and out of direct light. Temperature swings break down the seals and destroy the contents faster than anything. The bottom line? Canned goods and shelf-stable proteins aren't just insurance against disaster. They're practical, budget-friendly, and flexible tools for everyday life. Build the right stockpile, and it won't just keep you alive. It'll keep you sane. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked, yet absolutely critical of the categories in your emergency stash: fats. Without them, your meals are flat, your calories are too low, and your body will struggle to absorb key vitamins. When you're living off rice, beans, and canned goods, it's the fats that fill in the nutritional gaps and keep your energy stable. And here's the problem. Most oils go rancid fast. That bottle of extra virgin olive oil on your shelf, if it's been open for more than a year, it's probably already starting to turn. So what fats actually last? Number 1, clarified butter, also known as ghee. This stuff is a survivalist's dream. It has all the rich flavor of butter, but none of the water or milk solids that cause spoilage. Properly stored in a sealed glass jar, ghee can last up to 5 years without refrigeration. Keep it in a cool, dark cabinet, and don't double dip. Use a clean spoon every time, and it'll serve you well. Bonus, it tastes incredible. Fry eggs, sear meat, stir into rice. Ghee instantly levels up any meal. Next is coconut oil. Refined coconut oil has one of the longest shelf lives of any oil, 5 years or more if stored right. It stays solid at room temperature, which helps preserve it, and it's incredibly versatile. You can cook with it, bake with it, even use it for skincare or as a natural antibacterial ointment if you're in a pinch. That's right. It's not just food, it's functional. Powdered butter is another fat source worth serious consideration. It doesn't sound glamorous, but powdered butter is real butter that's been dehydrated and packaged for long-term storage. When mixed with water, it reconstitutes into a spreadable, cookable version that's surprisingly tasty. The good brands last up to 10 years and work in baking, on toast, or stirred into pasta. It won't replace fresh butter for your morning croissants, but in a survival pantry, it's gold. You also might want to consider shelf-stable lard or tallow. These rendered animal fats aren't trendy, but they've been used for centuries. Pure lard stored in airtight containers can last years at room temperature and even longer in the fridge. It's perfect for frying, sautéing, or adding depth to stews and beans. And it's calorie-dense, which matters a lot more than flavor when you're running on limited fuel. But no matter which fats you stockpile, storage is everything. Heat, light, and oxygen are the enemies. Keep oils and fats in dark glass jars or opaque containers, tightly sealed and stored somewhere cool, ideally under 70 degrees. Never store oils near your stove or on an open pantry shelf that catches sunlight. And always date your containers. Even the best oils break down eventually. A good rule of thumb: rotate oils every 12 to 18 months, unless they're designed for long-term storage. Use the oldest jars for everyday cooking, and replenish your supply gradually. Don't stock 10 gallons of coconut oil all at once unless you actually use it. Buy small amounts regularly, and build up a stable rotation. Here's the thing most people miss. Fats are what make food satisfying. Without them, you'll be constantly hungry, even if you're eating enough calories. They help your body absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. They support hormone function and brain health. In short, they're not optional. They're essential. So while everyone's hoarding rice and beans, you should be quietly stacking jars of ghee, cans of coconut oil, powdered butter, and maybe a few tubs of shelf-stable lard. When the time comes, those fats will turn your basic rations into actual meals. And in a long-term emergency, that's the difference between scraping by and staying strong. If you're looking for food that outlasts nearly everything else in your pantry and still tastes halfway decent when rehydrated, freeze-dried and dehydrated meals are your ace in the hole. These aren't just for backpackers or survivalists living off the grid. They're now one of the smartest long-term food solutions out there. Lightweight, compact, and with a shelf life of 20 to 30 years when sealed properly. No fridge required, no preservatives needed. The secret's in the process. Freeze drying pulls out nearly all the moisture while keeping most of the nutrients intact. You're left with a meal that weighs a fraction of the original, but still looks, smells, and tastes like real food once rehydrated. A sealed pouch or can of freeze-dried beef stew you buy today could still be your dinner in the year 2055. That's not a joke, it's food science. Now, not all freeze-dried meals are created equal. Some companies crank out bland, chalky products just to check the survival box. But others, like Mountain House or Nutrient Survival, have stepped up their game. We're talking chili mac, pasta primavera, even biscuits and gravy that don't taste like punishment. Many now offer options for specific diets too, low-sodium, gluten-free, or vegetarian. And then there's the convenience. All you need is water. Hot is ideal, but cold works if necessary. You don't need a full kitchen, just a pot, thermos, or even a cup and a spoon. Some pouches even act as their own bowl. Pour, seal, wait 10 minutes, and eat. That level of simplicity is worth its weight in gold when you're dealing with a blackout or boiling water on a camp stove. But meals aren't your only option. Freeze-dried fruits and vegetables deserve a spot in your stockpile too. Strawberries, bananas, blueberries, corn, peas, bell peppers. These are lightweight, full of nutrients, and easy to snack on or toss into soups and oats. Dehydrated potatoes, onions, and carrots are just as valuable. They take up minimal space and rehydrate quickly. Now yes, freeze-dried foods are more expensive per meal compared to your average canned goods, but they also last 4 to 6 times longer and require no fuel to cook. And because they're dry and light, they're perfect for bug-out bags, emergency kits, or even stashing in your car trunk without worrying about spoilage. Storage is simple. Keep them sealed in their original packaging, away from moisture, heat, and sunlight. Once opened, use them within a few weeks or reseal with oxygen absorbers. And here's a pro tip. Don't wait for a disaster to try them. Rotate them into your meal plan now and get used to how they taste and cook. That way, if the power ever goes out, you're not figuring it out on the fly. Dehydrated foods don't last quite as long. Think 10 to 15 years, but they're cheaper and still incredibly useful. They tend to require more cooking time and water, but they shine in bulk staples like beans, lentils, or vegetables for stews. Paired with freeze-dried proteins or grains, you've got solid, versatile meals that won't bore your taste buds by day 3. The bottom line? Freeze-dried and dehydrated foods aren't just for what-if scenarios. They're part of a real-world, modern food security plan that makes sense for families trying to prepare responsibly. You don't need to fill your basement. Even a few weeks' worth of shelf-stable, water-ready meals gives you a huge advantage when the lights go out and the shelves are bare. Food gets all the attention in most prepper plans. But let's not forget about what you drink. In a long-term emergency, hydration, energy, and micronutrients are just as important as calories. And honestly, they're a lot easier to overlook. That's why shelf-stable beverages and supplements should have a spot in every serious stockpile. Let's start with coffee. It's not just a comfort item. For some people, it's critical. Instant coffee is your best friend here. It lasts years if stored right, is lightweight, and doesn't require any brewing gear. Just add hot water, stir, and you're good to go. Vacuum-sealed bricks of ground coffee or freeze-dried options can last even longer. And trust me, when you're living through a blackout or cold morning without power, that hot cup will feel like a lifesaver. Next, tea. Herbal, black, green, they're all great. Unopened tea bags can last years, especially when sealed in foil packets or stored in jars. Tea can calm your nerves, settle your stomach, or help with sleep depending on the blend. And just like coffee, it's light, compact, and takes up almost no space. Then there are powdered drink mixes, an underrated tool for keeping spirits high and hydration going strong. Electrolyte powders like Gatorade, Liquid IV, or even good old Tang can help replenish what your body loses under stress, heat, or sickness. When clean water is limited and plain water starts to get boring, these mixes go a long way. But here's the game changer: multivitamins. You might be sitting on a pile of rice and canned goods, but if you're not getting the right nutrients, your energy, focus, and immune system are going to suffer fast. High-quality multivitamins fill those gaps, especially during prolonged emergencies when fresh food isn't available. Look for versions with long shelf lives, ideally in vacuum-sealed or moisture-resistant packaging. Also consider supplementing with powdered greens or protein drink mixes. These aren't just for fitness buffs. They're practical additions to any survival plan. A single scoop of greens powder can give you the equivalent of a day's worth of veggies. And protein powder adds easy, no-cook nutrition to oats, shakes, or baked goods when meat is scarce. Keep everything stored in airtight containers away from light and heat. And rotate your supplements yearly. They don't spoil overnight, but potency does drop with time. These aren't luxury items. They're practical tools for maintaining health, energy, and morale when food options get limited. Your stash isn't complete without them. Let's be honest, if your emergency food plan is just rice, beans, and canned meat, it's going to get old fast. That's where herbs, spices, and condiments come in. They don't just improve flavor. They boost morale, support digestion, and even provide antimicrobial benefits in some cases. Plus, when stored right, most of them last for years. Start with salt. It's not just for taste. It's a critical survival item. Your body needs it to function, and it's one of the oldest preservatives in history. Iodized table salt is good for your thyroid, but keep some non-iodized salt too, especially if you plan on preserving meat or fermenting vegetables. Buy in bulk. It's dirt cheap and lasts forever. Then, you've got dry spices: black pepper, chili powder, garlic powder, oregano, thyme, cumin, cinnamon, bay leaves. The list goes on. Kept in sealed jars away from heat and humidity, these can stay usable for 3 to 4 years or longer. Whole spices last even longer than ground, and they pack more flavor too. Ethnic grocery stores are gold mines for buying large quantities of fresh spices without the crazy markup. Vinegar is another must-have: white, apple cider, or balsamic. They're all shelf-stable and useful for cooking, cleaning, and even first aid. Vinegar lasts indefinitely when stored in a cool, dark place, and it can be used for everything from pickling to disinfecting surfaces. Bouillon cubes or powder, especially low-sodium varieties, are incredibly useful. They let you turn plain rice or pasta into a warm, flavorful meal with almost zero effort, and they take up almost no space. Now don't forget about long-lasting condiments: soy sauce, Worcestershire, hot sauce, mustard. All of these have impressive shelf lives, sometimes well beyond their best-by dates. They're salty, acidic, or fermented, which helps them stay good for years. Just store them unopened in a cool pantry and rotate through your stock every couple years. And here's a tip: create a small spice rotation system. Use what you store and store what you use. That way your seasoning game stays fresh and nothing ends up stale when you actually need it. Because here's the bottom line: survival food doesn't have to taste like cardboard. A sprinkle of spice or a splash of vinegar can turn a basic meal into something you actually want to eat. That's not just about comfort. It's about staying sane when things get tough. You've got your grains, proteins, oils, and flavor covered. But we're not done yet. Some of the most valuable items in your stockpile don't fit neatly into any one category. They're the wild cards, the overlooked essentials that fill the gaps and offer true resilience when everything else runs dry. Let's start with hardtack. This centuries-old survival biscuit is nothing but flour, water, and salt, baked until it's basically a brick. But it's nearly indestructible. Properly dried and sealed, hardtack can last decades. It's not gourmet, but in a pinch, it gives you carbs and crunch when fresh bread is off the table. Just soak it in soup or tea to soften it up. Then there are MREs, meals ready to eat. Originally made for the military, MREs are full meals with a 5 and a 10-year shelf life, including entrees, snacks, utensils, and often self-heating pouches. They're pricey, but for grab-and-go emergencies or short-term bug-out bags, nothing beats their portability and convenience. Having a few on hand is just smart insurance. Ration bars are another must. These aren't candy bars. They're calorie-packed blocks meant to sustain you with minimal space. Most provide 2,400 to 3,600 calories in a single small package and last 5 years or more. You don't want to live off them forever, but if you're stranded, they could literally buy you time. Cornstarch might not be on most prepper lists, but it's surprisingly useful. Besides thickening sauces and soups, it's great for homemade baby powder, cleaning, treating rashes, and even soothing insect bites. Same goes for plain gelatin. Mix with water for desserts, use it to preserve fruit, or even help with wound healing, thanks to its collagen content. Powdered milk, eggs, and butter were already mentioned, but powdered cheese deserves a shout-out. It turns pasta or rice into something actually craveable. Some brands even make shelf-stable mac and cheese mixes that hold up for years. And don't overlook morale boosters. A few bags of candy, some cocoa powder, packets of tea, or instant pudding. These don't just feed the body. They feed the spirit. When you're 2 weeks into canned chili and rice, that little square of chocolate or mug of hot cocoa can feel like a warm hug. Now, here's where it all comes together. You can have every category we've talked about, but if it's a chaotic mess in boxes and buckets, it won't help you when the pressure's on. Build a categorized inventory. Grains in one section, proteins in another, fats, spices, snacks, supplements. All labeled, dated, and organized. Use a simple spreadsheet or a notebook. Track what you have, what you've used, and what needs restocking. And don't wait for a crisis to start using your stockpile. Rotate. Cook with it. Test your meals. The goal isn't to panic buy and pray. It's to quietly build a system that supports you through inflation, supply disruptions, or anything the world throws your way. Preparedness isn't paranoia. It's peace of mind. Every jar, bag, and bucket you store is one more layer of protection for your family. So stock wisely, store properly, and stay ready. Because when the world gets unpredictable, your kitchen might just be the safest place to be.